Hello, one and all. This is your lovely host, Acularius, and today we're going to look at the first look commentary format. This is version July 2017. So, getting into this, it will be based on an hour gameplay that is streamed live or recorded. At least an hour of research will be based on that recorded video. At least an hour. So that could take up other things, up news, reviews, other things as well. Maybe something I missed that wasn't in the gameplay video. Going into this, we're going to look at the overview. So, as it is a first look commentary, the emphasis is going to be obviously on tutorials, GUI, graphic user interface, and controls, how players introduced to its game, the systems involved, and the emerging dynamic of said game. Secondary are like game options, art design, and sound design. So, going into this, start tutorials. Is it integrated to the game? As I might have mentioned or talked about on Discord, I believe tutorials are the elevator pitch to the player. Is the tutorial standalone and doesn't react to the game environment? So, this is more commonly seen in, is it a wall of text, which I consider poor design? Does it ease the player into controls? Does it engage them to do so before continuing? Does it, give them an example? Does it show them how to do it and then, get them to do it? Obviously, the best tutorials are skippable for advanced users, so they don't have to do it again. They only have to do it once. Now, why do I consider wall of text poor design? So basically, particularly in fast game environments, a wall of text isn't very useful. It's basically a digital way of just plopping down a manual in front of the player. But what a tutorial should do, definitely with modern games and design techniques, is it should get the player to go through the motions at least, or at least show them how to access certain functions, do certain things. That being said, are the controls standard? Do they introduce new controls that aren't, in the standard thing? So most games typically use WASD, but for a lot of Paradox Interactive GSG games, these are typically hotkeys for map modes. So you typically have to use your old-fashioned arrow keys unless you modify the control. Going forward, some preface. Way back in the day, not way back in the day, but most games were packaged with CDs and manuals, and you were kind of almost expected to read the manuals, how to set up a game, how to learn how the game. There were a lot of other juicy bits of manuals, typically like stories, backgrounds, the characters of the game, so on and so forth. Sometimes a lot of them can be really nice. But, games have changed. A lot of it's moved over to digital mediums, like on Steam. Most common one, I would say. And, so these tutorials should be integrated, particularly with the rise of casual games, like shows that you can. I know that wikis and glossaries and all these exist, but I feel is for players that are already invested into the game. So the model of a game should essentially be easy to learn, so it's easy to pick up reasonably well. They can at least do things they might lose, but the whole point is it's difficult to master. So this should allow for complex games to exist, so long as there is a good tutorial to teach a player how to do them. So that's just my opinion on it. This is how I'm going to determine how decent a game is. Like, this is a big thing, depending on how complex a game is. It'll rank rather highly on if I would recommend a game or not. That being said, the GUI and controls. This is basically what the player interacts with. I'm gonna drink water. So, how accessible are the most vital functions to the player? So, how easily is it to access certain bits of information? So, is the information a player needs easily accessible? Like, how many resources would they need? Or how much health do they have? Or how much ammo do they have left in the clip? Or how many clips do they have left? Like, how easy is it to access vital information? Or how easy is it to access information that might be relevant to the player? So, vital information should be in the GUI or on the HUD, essentially, of most games. But if it's still important information, or the player wants to know how to influence certain bits of the game system, those should be easily accessible, particularly more important parts. Does Are the controls standard? Do they meet other game controls relevant in the genre? This will be a part of the research aspect, so I would probably be looking in to control standardization for most games. Most genres have like a standard feel to it now. I would say about a decade ago, first-person shooters, particularly on consoles, were really just learning, or at least figuring out like how to deal with controls. As an example, quote me on that one. I might be wrong, but I'm working off memory off that one. So the GUIs, how well they're designed, these are based on genre, but for grand strategy games, which are typically played, these are quite vital, particularly with games that work in real time. So vital information should be easily accessible, easy to see. I shouldn't have to like click 5 million times just to get an important piece of information that I use on a regular basis. Now, it's no fault of game designers, particularly since they're designing the game, they're going to be more. They designed it, so they're just more familiar with the game itself. But for a new player, important pieces of information should be easily accessible. Something that might get overlooked for more experienced players. That being said, we're going to move on to the next topic, which is game systems and emerging dynamics. So this is basically the world that the player plays in. For say like Europa Universalis 4, you start in a certain time period, but you're playing on the map with the nations at the time. So how well presented are the game system? How easily accessible are they? Do you understand them? Are they transparent? Are they easily accessible? Or and are they well designed? Should the information that they have be more transparent, or should it be more hidden, maybe to improve the difficulty? Maybe the player doesn't really need that information. Or maybe it needs to be more readily accessible, like the player really needs that information and it shouldn't be hidden so much. How well do the systems work together? Some systems are obviously usually more powerful than others. Does any one system have more sway? Are they well integrated, or are they standalone? Like, are systems dependent on one another, or separate as they contribute to your emerging game dynamic or the world that you're playing in? So I would say that for a trading nation and Paradox Interactive games like Venice, the trade system would be more vital to it, but maybe other systems not so much as you're going forward, same with colonies and all that. So, like, how well do they mesh? How well do they work? Are there any bits of it that are overpowered, or maybe they need strengthening, or have you? So that being said, then we're going to look into the secondary bits of a game. Usually the system itself. So how's the art palette? Does it look presentable? Does it look nice? So this is subjective, obviously. But going past that, is the art design coherent? Do we have this bit that's made for the era, and then suddenly there's this weird sci-fi bit that obviously should have been replaced or designed to properly mesh with the design? And does it work with the theme overall? Are there, moving on past that, also kind of subjective, sound design. Similar to art design, does it fit the theme? Does it evoke the right mood for the player at any given point? So if you're at war, does it get you going, or are you at peace and something a bit more mellow? But at the same time, not putting you to sleep, like something there to give substance. Then we are going to look into certain options. I'd say the most important option for me would be sound, because I fiddle around with that when streaming or recording videos, because I need to be able to speak and the microphone pick me up. But at the same time, I don't want the game to overpower me. Otherwise, it's going to be like, I can't. You're muffled, essentially, and you're trying to like shout in front of a jet airplane. Maybe not the worst analogy, but a game could be too loud, and you might want to change that for the players who don't have to worry about recording. So, like, maybe they want certain sounds up more often. Maybe they want the ability to turn off music so they can play their own in the background. Graphics, like, what does it present? To me, I like, most of the time, I prefer full window bordered. Not borderless, so I can deal with my viewers off on the side pretty easily without tabbing out of the game. Some definitely older games, this might work nearly as well. Definitely when recording. But also, what kind of game options do they have? Like, I'll go over them. I'll talk about the ones that I feel are important, what I use on a more regular basis. But some people, will see things that maybe they like or need in a game before they pick it up, and we'll just go over them rather quickly. So, in the end, I will give a yay or nay, basically the Steam system, and I'll explain why I like the game. I won't give a number rating system because that feels arbitrary. I'll basically just recommend a game based on whether I liked it or not, and I'll give reasons behind it. I'll list some pros, I'll list some cons, and as I said, this is based on the gameplay that I had played. This is not a full review. It's basically what I liked in the first hour of gameplay. That being said, I hope you enjoyed a look at the commentary system that I hope to implement in the coming days. This is the version for July 2017. There'll probably be future iterations as we figure this out and I get feedback from the community. But as always, have a blast. This is your host, Acularius, signing off, and I can't wait to see you in the future. Bye now.